These guys are ridiculous. These guys are...
And we are back with another episode of From the Rafters. Sam and I are here recording on Monday, October 11th. And the Celtics just played their second preseason game. I think we recorded our last episode right before they were about to play. And they have improved to 2-0. I remember in our last From the Rafters episode, we're talking about some things you wanted to see different from the C's in their next game. Did they do that? Or was it still kind of like...
Well, I thought they looked better, for sure. So in the first game, there was no stretch where I was really impressed. Did not think they looked good consistently through that game. Just disappointing to start. In the second game, I thought they looked much better. They showed us flashes of what they're capable of. I thought Horford looked much better. He was making threes. I was a little concerned that he wasn't making them in the first game. I believe he was 4 for 4 or something crazy like that. Looked really good. Looked good running the break. Had a nice fast break dunk. Thought Tatum looked a little better too. He's flirting with a triple-double. Brown obviously didn't play, which was unfortunate. Obviously you want to see him out there, but he looked good enough in the first game where I wasn't really concerned about him anyways. So him having to sit out isn't the end of the world. We missed out on some Schroeder minutes, which I would like to see some more of. I thought he looked good in certain categories in the first game, but he looked a little bit wild at the same time. So I would have loved to see him more controlled out there. Josh Richardson is a guy I was satisfied with more in the second game. In the first game, he looked shaky, missed some mid-range shots. In the second game, he looked more engaged. I thought he looked good defensively in both games, but in the second game, he was getting to the basket. He looked comfortable. Adam Taylor tweeted out that his off-ball movement was really good, and I agree. He tweeted out some good clips, so if you're interested, check out Adam. He's a good friend of ours. But yeah, overall, Pritchard looked good again. Overall, Romeo, a non-Jack guy, looked very good in that game, which is fine. I mean, you have good reason not to be in on him. I'm shaky on him too, even though at the end of last season I was high on him because I thought he looked good in the playoffs. And if what he says is true, he's been working on his shot. It looks like it. I don't know if he's missed a 3 yet this preseason. He might have missed one. Missed one.
5 for 6.
Yeah, but he looks really good. He looks comfortable. And if he can sit in the corner and make them, then I mean that's really great. It gives him ample opportunity to have minutes on this team, right? Because he can play defense pretty well. And if he's able to make his threes, then he fills a need. So it's good.
Yeah, I agree. I was writing my takeaways for this game. I ended up having 6 from the Raptors Celtics game. If you want to read them the morning after, we posted them on bannertownusa.com, so make sure to check that out. But the first thing was something that Scow was saying over and over on the broadcast was that offense could be an issue. Not necessarily from the sense that they can't really generate it. It's just they don't really have a go-to way to get a bucket right now. And obviously that you would assume that would be Tatum and Brown as the season progresses. But Tatum's looked kind of shaky, and that's my second one. Tatum needs to find his groove because he found it a little bit at the end there, but it just seems like the shots he's taking, he looks almost uncomfortable taking them, which I don't understand. It could just be, getting into the groove of things like I said in the title of it, but I'm hoping that doesn't take too much longer. But overall, one of the main things that I wanted to discuss, which we can bring up right now before I go over the rest of my takeaways even, is I think that while they might not necessarily live and die by the three-pointer, I think that's going to be the biggest, what's the word for it? It's not biggest issue for them, but it's like it'll be a blessing and a curse, I think is the way I've described it in my head, because they take a lot of them and they're very, very, very good at shooting them this season, right? You think about it. You have Neesmith, you have Pritchard, Langford's hitting those shots. You have him, Grant Williams can make them. The Jays, obviously, Horford looked like a flamethrower from 3-point range, which was great to see. But at the same time, they seem to be only trying to go for threes. Like their entire offensive game plan is to get a 3-point shot, which is fine if you're hitting them, and they have been. So it doesn't seem like that big of an issue. But then at the same time, they're just not getting any shots in the paint, which is also not okay. Like, it just seems like they can never drive. Do you know what I'm saying? Do you see that too?
No, I agree. It does. And that's the whole league now because people love analytics. But here's the problem with threes. You're absolutely right. Okay. So if you're going for the majority of your shots to be 3-pointers, that's great when they're falling. But the thing about threes is they're not always going to fall no matter how great of shooters you have on your team. the best shooters have off days. So you're going to lose games because that's your focus. Okay. It's just not a way that you can, especially in a playoff game, I really think.
That's where I think it becomes a real issue. Because we saw teams last year do it for the whole season. Like the Jazz lived and died by the 3, and they were the 1 seed. But then you saw what happened when they got to the playoffs, and they had to play more.
They lost to a Clippers team where Kawhi wasn't even playing for them.
Yeah, it was tough. And like I said, I don't think it's going to be an issue even in that sense. Like you said, like obviously you're gonna have off nights, but that'll just happen. I think if they live and died by the 3, they'd win more games than they'd lose. I just think they also need to establish a paint attack because they haven't yet so far in the 2 preseason games we've seen. Like they haven't. It seems like they haven't been driving almost at all, which is I don't like. But yeah, we can move on to my takeaways.
No.
Yeah, go ahead.
To stick on this, I think that you absolutely need to establish a paint presence. I think Horford is a really great player to have on your team. I would like to see them play out of the post with him more because he can facilitate from there.
From the elbow. I like him from the elbow.
He's he's a good like low player. He can make a hook shot for you. He can hit a fadeaway. He can create from that area. You don't necessarily need somebody to create off a drive, which always isn't easy. I don't think Tatum has looked as great. And this always seems to be an issue with him at the beginning of seasons, whenever it is, whether it was when they came back in the bubble and he was off. I just feel like he's never really been great to start off a season. It's just weird. And I always feel, the reason I know this is because I always feel like I'm having this concern where it's like, is he not good anymore?
Yeah, which just seems like a silly thing to think, but it always gets scary.
Sure, it'll be okay.
Perform well in a couple seasons. The third thing I have is something you brought up because 2 was the Tatum thing. 3 was Romeo Langford, and I might have to eat crow on my take because if he's shooting like this, I mean, in fairness to myself, the one knock I had on him was that he couldn't shoot 3-point shots, and so if he's making 3-point shots, there's not really a reason for him not to get minutes. And what I wrote was, up until this point, the only thing Langford has done well, realistically, is play defense. Obviously a little playmaking too, but I don't see him having that role on this team. Well, he might be turning a corner. He was incredible, 5 of 6 from field, 3 of 4 from deep in the Raptors game. Through 2 games, he's 5 of 6 from 3. That's not something I think a lot of people saw coming. I know you said he mentioned it, but
I didn't.
Regardless, like I didn't think he'd come out and be this consistent. And obviously, it's only 2 games, so maybe he just got hot. But if he does become a consistent 3-point shooter, he could be one of the more valuable pieces off of their bench, right? Because like I think KJ was saying the other day on the pregame show, which you guys should check out at Guy Boston Sports on YouTube, he's probably their best perimeter defender off the bench, outside of maybe Josh Richardson if he does come off the bench. But if he's shooting threes at the level he is right now consistently, then that's like one of your top guys off the bench, right?
Yeah, he definitely paves the way for himself to get consistent minutes. The problem with Romeo, and I think you'll agree with this, is he's never really been consistent. And I'm not so sure that's even skill. It just seems some days he doesn't come with the same energy that he needs to be an effective player. So he's going to figure that out. And I think that's an easy thing to figure out if you're an NBA player and you want to improve. It seems like he wants to. In the comments he's made after games, I've been working hard to improve. And that's important. You see guys on this team improve every year, specifically Jaylen Brown, who's someone we've compared his arc to because of how he didn't get as many consistent minutes early in his career, just like Brown did. The difference is Romeo was consistently injured. Brown really hasn't had that issue, knock on wood. But, okay, you've got those 2 guys. Romeo, one thing that we kind of disagreed on at the end of last season was how effective he's going to be. And the reason I was high on him was because of how well he played in the playoffs to me. I thought he was impactful. I thought he was able to knock down his threes consistently, and it helped them win the 1 game they did. The time where I stopped believing was Summer League, when he didn't really show us anything against guys that are guys he should be able to show us stuff with. The good thing about, we'll focus on the Raptors game, even though he was solid in both games shooting wise, is he was doing it against the players he would play against in a real NBA game. He was not playing garbage time. He started, and he seemed like he earned those minutes. So good for him. You've got another game against Orlando on Wednesday. for him to prove himself. I'd imagine in one of these games, Tatum is not going to play. I believe we heard that from somewhere. So we're going to see a lot of opportunity for these guys to show out, him and Neesmith included, who I think it's good that they have a little competition. It's going to motivate the both of them. It could help with Romeo's energy problem that we discussed.
Yeah, I think there's definitely room for both of them in the rotation too, but it is nice because on paper they are competing for the same, 10-man rotation spot realistically. But the big thing for me, Romeo just looked more comfortable out there. But like you said, he played well in the playoffs and played bad in the summer league. There's just been, even when he's been healthy, there's been no consistency with how well he performs. Like he's always going to be a solid defender. He's always going to have that little bit of playmaking, that athleticism, but it's the shooting. And that's the one thing, as sad as it is, that's the one thing you need to bring as a role player in the NBA nowadays. Like you can think there's so little role. Like I can't think of a single role player out there outside of like a big man like Dwight Howard or Nerlens Noel that can't shoot the ball, right? There's not many role players like that unless you're like a Tony Allen level defender, like a David Nwaba in Houston, who even he's shooting threes now. And that's just a very random example, but you know what I'm saying?
No, you're right, because those type players, for example, let's say Rondo, because he's someone traditionally that could not shoot. Later in his career, he's had to get better at it to continue to be effective. Okay, so I agree with you. Shooting is very important.
Look at Brook
thing,
Lopez. Look at Brook
exactly.
Lopez. That
He
guy
changed his whole
had no
career.
role.
Changed his whole career. He's an impactful player on a championship team for sure. Going back to Romeo and to defend him, his inconsistency. He has not had consistent minutes his whole career. So it can be difficult to be consistent when you're not consistently playing. We've seen him get consistent minutes in back-to-back games and in the playoffs and also Summer League where he didn't exactly perform. So we'll see. You've got 2 more preseason games to prove it. You've got a relatively easy stretch to start your season off to prove it. I still contend that they should win all 8 of those games.
Yeah.
I don't.
All right.
I'm not going to go back on that, and I'll be disappointed if they don't. Maybe go 7-1 is acceptable, but realistically, you should be able to do it. It's not. I mean, you are not playing any team that is a dominant, world-leading team. It's just not. It's not there. Mm-hmm. The Knicks might be the best team out of that bunch, and I don't think they're that good. KJ agrees. So, not that we never make mistakes, any of us, but I
got.
I just don't see it.
It's tough to win 8 games in a row, regardless, though, even no matter the level of the competition. But I see the point. None of them are like, they're not playing the Bucks or the Nets or the Lakers or anybody in those games. So you never know. But yeah, I hope Romeo keeps it up. If he does, I can't see any reason he's not in the regular rotation when the regular season comes around. Yeah, I mean, that's about it. I hope I'm wrong about him. I hope I've been wrong about him. I'm starting to see the light a little bit, but I guess we'll see as the season progresses. The next 2 points I made were about 3-point. The next 3 actually were about 3-point shooting. I had Peyton Pritchard has a cannon was one of them because he's incredible, right? You almost expect him to make those 40-footers now. You had Al Horford, who went 4 for 4 from deep in that Raptors game. He looked incredible. That's why you bring a guy like him back, for that defensive versatility and also floor spacing. And then the last one I had was I don't think 3-point shooting is going to be as much of an issue as it has been. And obviously the starters on the Celtics have always been decent 3-point shooters, even going back to like starters of years past. You had, Gordon Hayward, Kyrie Irving, you had the Jay Crowders even of the world who could shoot threes. But the bench unit has always been super shaky. Like last year you had Shemi Ojeleye as one of your main guys off the bench, right? You had Grant Williams, who is on the team still this year, but obviously
Grant, who looks good this year, shooting threes, by the way. He deserves the praise.
Exactly, improving as a shooter. You have had like Tristan Thompson off the bench instead of Al Horford, or however they want to run that. But they have so much depth in regard to 3-point shooting this year, I think, right? You go, if Romeo's shooting like this, you have him on top of Richardson, if he can like be a little more consistent. He's a solid shooter. Neesmith's great. Pritchard's great. Schroeder's great. You have Horford off the bench if he comes off the bench, and if not, you still have him in the starting lineup. You have Grant Williams, obviously. Juancho can shoot the 3. I forgot he was even on the team.
He didn't play much
a second ago. Sam Hauser, even your 2-way guy, is a 3-point specialist. Yeah, he didn't. But when he came in, he brought the energy, and that's what you need from a guy like Juancho.
Hauser did not.
But I just think 3-point shooting is great. No, he looked a little rough.
Hauser did not.
He's just a 2-way guy.
For someone that we've been discussing and discussing potential impact, he did not. He'll
get some run in Maine. He'll get some run in Maine, and maybe he can turn it around. But
which is great. I think it's nice that they have that this year.
Mm-hmm. I think 3-point shooting is going to be really, really, really good this year. I think they could be a top 10 team, top 5 team in 3-point shooting.
One thing I'll say about the threes, because I just think there's more to the game than that. Like we kind of discussed already, and you agree, it's dangerous. It is. That's the thing. It is dangerous. There are days you're going to be cold, and the problem,
Definitely is.
despite what the numbers will tell you, analytics, whatever you like, is there are going to be times where teams are going on runs against you. And if you continue to go down and shoot threes, it's not an easy way to snap a run. If those shots aren't falling, they're not going to fall for you that day. You have to get, as funny as it sounds, to the mid-range sometimes just to keep them guessing. It's still, that shot exists. You need to be able to utilize it. And elite players in the league can do it. And obviously getting to the basket is important as well. But
yeah,
I don't like that shot is dissolving because it's still important. Is it worth the same amount as a layup? Yeah. But sometimes you need to take that shot so you're harder to defend. It's just as simple as that. Threes.
Yeah, diversify.
Pritchard, going back to him, he's looked fantastic, and I think he's making a fantastic case for himself to have to find minutes somewhere. Because going in, you've got a lot of guard depth, and it's tough to, pin him in minutes, prior to these games. But now he has been consistent too, and he's made big shots. I mean, I still can't believe he took that 3 in the first game with like 30 seconds left from the parking lot. Easy, and he made it. So good on Pritchard, man. Good on Neesmith. I mean, all 3 of those young guys, Pritchard, Neesmith, and Romeo, have looked good. Which is
Grant too. Throw him in there.
And Grant deserves credit. He's looked fantastic. Sorry for the people that don't like him, but he's consistently knocking down threes. He's hustling. He had a block on somebody the other day. He looks good, man. I like
Precious,
Grant.
Right?
He's got a good attitude.
Precious.
Yeah.
Somebody on.
So we talked a lot in the offseason because we have nothing to talk about. This season is going to hinge a lot on the performance of these guys. How well can they provide depth for you on top of what you've already got? And so far, it's been good.
Yeah, for sure. I said this in the first, after the first preseason game. I think Grant Williams is really turning a corner in regard to what he said in the offseason. Like he said, I lost the weight. I'm ready to play the 4. And he showed it. He showed it. He's looking like rookie year Grant Williams, which is something that a lot of Celtics fans seem to have forgotten about, right? They loved him so much his rookie season, and then turned on him so fast. He didn't even have an offseason. Like Grant Williams did not have an offseason before he had to come in for year 2, right? He went right from the bubble, had 2 months of like half-ass nothingness, went right into year 2. Like all those rookies did. Romeo not included. He was the year before. But like it was so tough for that class to figure things out that quickly on the fly. And now that they've had a full offseason to finally define the role they have to be in, you can see the difference. You can see like the vast difference in how they're playing. Like Grant Williams knew what he would have to do to get minutes this season. He went out, he lost the weight, he got quicker. Now he's making those types of plays, and he's borderline, I don't want to say elite, but he's a consistently like great 3-point shooter every game. Like you can count on him to make 1 or 2 threes a game now. I think once the ball swung to him, and that doesn't sound like a lot, but for a role player playing around 18, 20 minutes, like you shoot 2 of 5, 3 of 5 from deep in a game, that's your job done. Play some defense, and that's your job.
I'm with you on that too. I mean, just going back to when Grant, I mean, if we want to pin the weight as a measuring point for his performance, which I guess you can see correlation. He was an elite shooter in that playoffs in the bubble. Okay, he shot 60% for most of it, and I think at some point it was higher. Every time he shot the ball, I thought it was going in, and he looks to be back at that level now, which is good for him. Good for Grant. He's got a good attitude. He's a likable guy, and I think it's good that these guys are all playing well because it makes for competition within the team, which is going to push the other guys, vets, to play better. And you need that in a good team. I think going into this season, they have potential to compete. They're not to be. I don't think you should write them off. I mean, I don't think they're going to beat the Nets or anything, but I think they can have a good season. I've said I think it's possible for them to finish at the top of the conference record-wise. Maybe not, run through the playoffs on everybody, but I don't think it's out of the question. I don't think it's out of the question that they make an okay playoff run, maybe get to the conference finals. I mean, I just think besides Brooklyn, Milwaukee is obviously the favorite to be number 2 or number 1. I mean, they won last year. They should get respect for that, but it is open. There's a lot of teams at the same level. I think Miami is the top of the Celtics tier in the pyramid, if you will, but I think they can catch them. I mean, you've seen Miami play, Jack. I'm sure you think they look good.
They look really good.
Yeah.
They look very, very good. And Tyler Hero is doing the one thing that you are begging the Celtics to do right now. He's taking a lot of mid-range shots, and he's nailing them. He's doing everything he can. He's creating
Well, it
shots.
makes you effective. It makes you harder to guard.
Makes him really. Tyler Hero's playing incredibly well, and I know Celtics fans, especially Celtics fans listening to a Celtics podcast right now, don't want to hear about Tyler Hero, but Tyler Hero looks like if he was on his own team, kind of like not like Tatum is, but like if he had to lead a team, I think he could be an all-star. Like
I think if he was on his own team, he'd be Zach LaVine. So, maybe he's not athletic, but you know what I mean.
Was an all-star.
He was an all-star, but I'm not sure
Tyler
it would
Hero
translate to winning.
Athletic. He's not Zach. I don't know if it would necessarily translate to winning, but I'm saying if he was on a team with as good supporting pieces as Tatum, he's not Tatum's level, but I think he could lead them to like an 8 seed. I think he could get them into the play-in, and I think he'd be an all-star. My point is, I'm beating around the bush. He's just playing really good basketball right now. He's shooting the ball really well. He looks confident, making good passes. He just looked like a good team. Kyle Lowry is their lowest, he scored the least for them this season, and he still looks like one of the best players on the floor, and that's hard to do. So they'll be as tough out. Max Strus is incredible right now too, which hurts Celtics fans a little bit, but yeah, they're playing super well.
I wonder where the Celtics. It's funny we're talking about that. I'm bringing this up before the season even starts, but where they should shoot to finish playoff seeding wise. Who do you think you match up best against? Milwaukee, definitely not Brooklyn.
I would hope.
You want to avoid them. And it sounds like you want to avoid Miami because they're more versatile than Milwaukee is.
I think ideally you finish top 4, and you hope that Brooklyn, Milwaukee, Miami are also in top 4, so that way you can play one of the Knicks, the Hawks, the Bulls, or the Sixers in round 1. And out of those teams, I'd want to play the Sixers the least because Ben Simmons is supposedly figuring out a way to get back into training camp right now.
Yeah, which no one is surprised because he has no leverage because he's got 4 years on his deal. I don't know why so much was made of him having any kind of leverage in that situation. If he doesn't want to play, then too bad you have 4 years before you're going to play again if you're not going to play for Philly ever again.
Yeah, exactly. And I think ideally you play the Knicks in round 1 because as much as I don't think they're a bad team, I also think they're the worst team of the bottom tier playoff teams, if that makes sense. Past that, I'd probably rather play
I agree.
Atlanta, Philadelphia, like those guys. And past that, I think you just roll with the punches. Maybe I might rather play. It's so tough. I don't really want to play the Heat because I really think
wouldn't want to play Miami either.
But then again, would I rather play Brooklyn or Milwaukee over them? Do you know what I'm saying? Because like in my mind, this doesn't make sense.
Because
that's what I'm saying. In my mind, Milwaukee's the best matchup, but they just want to chip, so I don't know.
Last season, the Celtics it doesn't really mean anything. They were one Tice 3 away from sweeping the season series against them. It's the regular season, playoffs happen, and adjustments are made, and it's hard to guard Giannis in a playoff series. Whatever you would like to bring up, but they handled Milwaukee well in the regular season last year. Ideally, that's a matchup for them. Middleton's always going to play well against him, though, so there's that. But I'm excited. I think there are things to be concerned about with this team. They've played 2 teams that really shouldn't be playoff teams, and they haven't blown the door. I will say Toronto, I think they improved significantly. They were blowing the doors off of them for a while. The second quarter did not end well. They allowed a lot of points in a short amount of time and let them take a halftime lead. But that's not something I'm completely sure happens in a regular season game. So I don't know how concerned we should be about that. The Orlando game was more concerning, but you can see they've built upon it, which is great.
I told you about Anunoby though. He looks good. Anunoby looks good.
He does look really good. He looks not like the same guy that he has been, which hasn't been a horrible player, but he looks like someone that's going to impact winning. He looks
confident on
shots.
Offense. Is what he does.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which is, I mean, I like it. I don't dislike OG Anunoby. I
And-
don't necessarily even dislike the Raptors. So
And quickly going back to the Knicks, just because I give them a lot of a hard time. I'm not saying they're not going to be a playoff team. I just don't think they're.
yeah.
In all honesty, the thing that pisses me off is when people say they're better than the Celtics, and I don't think that's true at all. I think they're
I
a worse version of last year's Celtics team. Derrick Rose is a great piece off the bench, though. That makes them better in that aspect. But, I mean, they're the same backcourt as the Celtics with worse supporting pieces. And I don't think you can debate that on any level. It's just not true.
I think they just have more depth than last year's Celtics does, which I'm not arguing that
They do have better depth, but the pieces around Kemba Walker and Fournier are not nearly as good. Randall had a
I'd take Tatum
fantastic
and Brown
season,
over
and
those
no one
guys.
should dispute that, but he's no Tatum.
Hey,
He might not
technically
even be
made
Brown.
an All-NBA team. Technically made an All-NBA team over
Yeah,
Tatum,
I
which is
mean,
crazy.
that means nothing. LeBron made it, and he played 5 games, so.
Very true. Also very true. But yeah, that's what I took away from that Celtics Raptors game. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I want to see. Schroeder didn't play, Brown didn't play. Hopefully they'll be back very soon.
Toronto did not miss from 3. I'm not even sure if that's
It looked okay.
Celtics defense or guys making tough shots. Van Vliet made a lot of threes where he was deep. I feel
The
like
Raptors
Toronto
didn't even shoot that well from 3.
It felt
Like they did.
They
It's
started
Van
slow,
Fleet,
that's why.
Yeah, Van Fleet shot 6 of 8. They ended up shooting like under 35%, but Van Fleet was hot. Their bench just shot really poorly. Like Malachi Flynn shot 0 of 6. Some of their starters, Precious and Scotty Barnes, both shot 0 of 3 and 0 for 4. OG made his shots, but like Fred Van Fleet was just killing them.
I think there were times in that game where I was frustrated with the defense. I still think they got to figure out some other way to play defense. I don't like when there's a big guy on the guard to start the possession. It doesn't make sense. It makes it so that guy's not in the paint to rebound, not necessarily meaning that Tatum can't do it because he can grab rebounds himself. He's a big guy, but they need to figure that out. Switching everything is lazy. Especially if you're not making them earn the switch. If you're making them earn the switch, it's completely different. If you're switching on screens, it's fine because it's a tough decision to go over and get beat off the dribble or to go under and get beat with a shot. And in today's NBA, it's a real issue. But you cannot just give up switches because guys are crossing each other on cuts. If you're going to do that, play a zone.
They need to clamp down on defense. I think the paint defense is the real thing. And the biggest thing for me is the bigs not being there to rebound the ball, because you do see the Celtics get out rebounded. I don't think they lost the rebound battle in this game. They won it by 4, but
that goes back to switching.
That magic game.
And so does paint defense. If those guys aren't down there because they're guarding Fred Van Vliet, then of course the paint defense is going to be good. You got who starts for the Celtics? I mean, Marcus is a good defender, but you've got small guys in there. Off the bench, you got Pritchard defending the paint. Because of a switch? No, that's not right. They need to. I mean, just looking between the two games, it was night and day. I think in performance, even though they both went to the wire, even though they didn't blow out the other team in starter minutes or regular rotation minutes, that Toronto game they did blow them out, and I think they need to work on keeping their foot on the gas. I think that was an issue, but I'm not. To me, when I was watching that game, there was not a lot that I was noticing just by watching it that they were doing wrong when Toronto came back. I just think they got hot, which is going to happen. And I could be completely wrong. If you're listening to this and you disagree, you might be right.
I think it was, for me, it was almost as simple as the worst players were in and they weren't hitting shots. Like you say, Sam Hauser was cold. The rest of the bench, there were points where they weren't cold too, and Toronto was not cold at all.
But not in the second quarter. At the end of the game, you're absolutely right. That game had no business being that close. But they came back. The Celtics were like up almost 20 in that second quarter, and they went in the halftime down.
Was that the quarter where Tatum started chucking? Because that was an issue too. He just was.
It might have been.
Tatum was just missing a lot, and I don't think that'll be a consistent thing. But they were trying to get him hot. He was missing threes. He was missing mid-range shots. He eventually got that put back, a little floater thing, which I think helped him get into rhythm. But he looked off for the whole game too.
I think he needs a haircut
at times. Maybe he does. Go back to Ricky or Tatum. But I like what I'm seeing from the rest of the role players, especially. So that's impressive to me. Was there anything else you want to bring up from the preseason game before we move on here?
No, I think it'll be exciting to watch Wednesday. See if it goes similar against Orlando. I think Orlando played up in that first game. I don't think they're that good. I mean, Mo Bamba looked like prime KG out there, so I think that was a bit ridiculous. And even though I guess he played well in the next game too, because I saw people talking about
He
it.
did. He
Yeah.
got like 15, 10, and 5 blocks, which is it's really good. Impressive from Bamba, who I still like. I think he'll be okay. But you sent me an article before we started here.
Yeah, I
I
was at
figured we could
work
talk about it in
today
a bit.
looking at this, and I was seething at my seat, looking at all these teams. So the article that we're referencing is an ESPN premium article, so you are getting the insider scoop
ESPN's
on this
garbage.
podcast. ESPN is garbage, but ESPN Plus with your subscription, you get to see certain articles. This one ranks NBA teams amongst power rankings within the next 3 seasons. So really, how great ESPN thinks their future is going to be. And
I
the
will say it's a
Celtics,
little clickbaity. That's a little clickbait. When you say future, I'm thinking like next 10 years or some shit.
but that's what it
They're
is. 3
talking
years. That's what it says, right?
it does, but I'm saying when I read the title, I'm expecting future. I'm expecting like the best young teams, and it's just telling us
But
who's the
they
best team
define
right
it.
now, realistically.
Yeah,
I know,
you're right about
I
that.
know. But like
It
when
is
I
kind of
click,
right
like,
now.
anyways, regardless, you can continue with what you're saying.
And the Celtics are ranked like horrifically low, much lower than they should be. And I was upset. So I sent it to Jack. I told him it was ridiculous. And, there are some teams ranked ahead of them that should not be.
Yeah, it's definitely a little odd. Nets #1, that makes sense to me. I don't know about you.
All their best
I
players are
think
under
that's fine.
contract for the
Bucks
window
number
that
2.
ESPN uses. Same with the Bucks.
Yeah, yeah. Bucks 2. Lakers 3. That also makes sense to me. I know you don't think they'll be as good as on paper, but like
I don't think they're going to last. I think
the
I think they missed their window to win a second one. I know other people think they're going to be really good this year. I mean, Westbrook's been horrible so far in the preseason. It's preseason. You
yeah,
can only take it with a grain of salt, but he hasn't looked
LeBron was
good.
at a football game. He was at a football game last night for the
Yeah.
game.
Well, I mean, that if he's on the Celtics, that's not okay. But and he should be there, and that's simple. I don't care if it's a
He was at the game.
preseason.
He was at the game. It was just the meme that LeBron plays in 5 hours and he's at a game right now.
Oh, okay. I didn't know he was also at the game. Okay,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
made
he
it
went to the
sound like
game.
he skipped the game to
No,
go
no,
to
no.
the football
I,
game.
I'm I don't actually know, but I can't imagine he missed
Okay.
a
Well, if
preseason
he
game.
if he did, then that's questionable.
Yeah. Anyways, Nuggets are 4, which I agree with. I can see it. They had the MVP this year. Jamal Murray will be back and they'll be in contention.
Porter Jr. is
Heat are
fine.
5.
I don't know
Heat
about
are
the
5.
Heat. I think the Heat have another small window. I think they have. So the Heat are set up to transition between stars, if that makes sense. So, as Butler and
Yeah.
Lowry age, Hero, Robinson, and Bam will all improve. But I'm not
Robinson's a
so.
little older though, low key. He's already
Yeah.
28.
Who is?
Yeah. Robinson's
Yeah,
28.
yeah, yeah. He's old.
27
But
maybe.
I mean, he's a
Anyways, I
shooter,
get
so
your
he's
point.
going to be fine
Continue,
forever.
continue.
I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
that doesn't really disappear with age.
They're locked up
But
for the whole window though, the 3 years. They
they're
have all the
locked up.
bonuses.
They're going to be paying Lowry and Butler a lot of money. So
Yes.
I'm not sure how long their window's
Yeah,
going to last.
that's fair. I think it's not unreasonable that they would be above the Celtics though. It's fair at least.
I don't know about that
It's
one.
not the most ridiculous one on the list. We'll put it that way.
It's
is what I'm
not.
saying.
It was
Okay.
not one of the ones I was particularly upset about, but
Number 6, Phoenix Suns. You can
Phoenix
agree
is
or
fair.
disagree. They were in the finals.
They were in the finals, so you have to let it slide. But I'm not sure about that one either.
Yep. 7 is the Warriors.
That one's fine. Similar to
What do you
Miami,
think
they're
about
set up
that?
to transition between, their power. So as Curry and Thompson age, their younger guys are going to get better. I believe Jordan Poole's looked really good in this preseason as well. So there's
He
that.
has. He's looked incredible. The Jazz are 8, and I
This
really
is
don't
the first
like that
one where I disagree with ESPN. Well, I might disagree on the other ones, but this is the first one I really think it's egregious. Yes, the Celtics had a down year last year, but before that, everyone was crowning them kings. I mean, dude, Utah was just the first team in the conference they lost out to a Kawhi-less Clippers. How
Yeah,
good are they going to
I,
be? As far as
I'm
young
not high on
talent,
the
what do they
Jazz.
have besides Mitchell? Nothing. Gobert is elite in his role, and I don't dispute that. But I don't think, I mean, you need more than him.
Yeah, they have a
And
very
I'm not
good.
so sure how long Mitchell's going to be there. He's been tweeting quite a bit about New England sports. And that's a half joke, but I mean, that has been something that has been
Yeah,
discussed for a very long time. Now all of a sudden he's in on the Patriots, who are horrible.
I think Utah's good. I think I pegged them as the 5 seed this upcoming season. Realistically, they'll probably be higher. They'll probably be a top 3 seed or something because they're a good regular season team. I don't buy them as a playoff team. I don't think they're going to win a championship in the next 3 to 5 seasons. I just
They're
don't think they're
certainly
good
not better
enough.
than the Celtics.
No,
They're not.
on
It's true.
paper, this year, I think they'll be a better team than the Celtics, or like regular
They
season
might be
record
this year,
wise.
but it's over this window. That's the problem.
Yeah, yeah, I think the Celtics
They
will
definitely
improve.
are coming into the season on a higher note than the Celtics are, which is fair. I mean, Celtics had a down year last year, and a lot of people
Yep.
pin this as a bridge year, which it definitely is, but it's not your typical bridge year. Like they're still supposed to compete.
Mhm. Next one is the Clippers
This
at
one I have a
9.
problem with.
I don't
Kawhi,
have as much of a problem with it because Kawhi's locked up, but it does
Kawhi's
hurt
locked
them
up,
that
but he's coming off
not
an
going to play this year.
ACL.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's ACL or Achilles or
He's
something like
coming
that.
off an ACL. Paul George looked better last year. That is fair. But besides that, they don't have much else. It's a problem.
Yeah, they do have a decent amount of okay young players. They don't have any picks though. It's just it's weird to see them above the Celtics. I will say though, they're probably going to be better for this year, and maybe it'll be closer next
I don't know
year.
about this
It's
year.
just tough.
Kawhi's not playing.
Yeah, okay, you're right. You're right. Once Kawhi gets back, though, I don't think there's a very good argument the Celtics are a better team, and this is barring they
Well,
land
that depends
Beal or
how
whatever.
well they play this season.
Yeah.
I think
All right.
this season is a big measuring stick for how well they're going to be. Because now you've got
Yep.
Tatum and Brown as the solidified stars on this team. How well are they going to be able to, carry this team? How well is it going to go? Are they going to have
All
problems?
right.
I don't think so. I think we've seen them throughout many playoff runs so far be the guys and lead them.
Mm-hmm. Yep. 10 is the Sixers, which I know you're not going to like either.
Well, to be fair, when I read this, Simmons was not, that news had not come out yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
He is locked up, Embiid is locked up, fine. However, they have never outdone the Celtics. They just haven't. It's not they can't beat the Celtics. They have made it farther in the playoffs once in the Celtics in these last however many seasons since Tatum's been on the team, and that was last year. It's just, I mean, Harris is locked up, and that's not the best contract. He's not a bad player by any means, but he's not that much money. Like it's a fine line, and
You
he's
have to
on
pay
the.
players like that is the issue. You have
That's
to.
the problem, and you're paying him.
Exactly.
Usually, that's a
It's
player
like
that gets paid by like a New Orleans or somebody that desperately needs to pay somebody to be on their team.
exactly. I compare it to the Drew Holiday contract where at base level, it's like, what are you doing? And then they go and win a championship. You're like, all right, fair enough. You won a chip. It's worth it.
Yeah,
You know
but
what I'm saying?
Philly's
The
not doing
Sixers
that.
haven't done that. Yeah. Okay. 11 is the Hawks. I don't see as much of a problem with this. I know you don't like it
I
because you
kind
think
of
the Celtics will be
disagree,
better,
but I
but you
understand
can
it
see
because of
it.
the run they just went on.
Yeah, you can see it for
And
sure.
they have a
Trae
lot of
Young,
young guys on that team. So whatever.
they do,
It's
and they have a
fair.
superstar, which is something. Yeah, some of these other teams don't have They have a superstar, I think, who will only get better, and that's the big thing.
Out of
Only
the
get
ones I
better.
had issue with,
Uh,
that one I had the least. That one's fine.
yeah, 12 is the Knicks, which even I think is
That's
ridiculous.
ridiculous. That is absolutely like ridiculous. The Knicks, one, are not better than them this year. They are not set up to be better than them in future years. I don't understand that at all. It's like insulting.
Yeah, I don't get it. That doesn't make sense. 13 is we don't even have to talk about it. 13 is the Mavericks.
Mavericks, I
I
kind of
get it.
I get it because Luka's a generational talent.
Luka's
and he's better than Tatum, and he's set up to be better than Tatum, so that's fine. And the ownership's great. And I mean, they're a fine team. Then the Celtics are at 14.
They are at 14. I can read you the description they write for the readers, or sorry, the listeners, and so we can discuss it. It was a busy offseason in Boston. Brad Stevens moved upstairs to replace Danny Ainge as president of the team. Stevens then traded Kemba Walker plus a first-round pick to bring back Al Horford and hired Ime Udoka, to replace him as coach. After all that, plus trading for Josh Richardson and signing Dennis Schroeder on a cut rate 1-year deal, Boston still finds itself right where it was in the spring, 14th in these rankings, with Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and a whole bunch of questions surrounding both of them moving forward. What questions? What questions are there?
I understand the questions.
And do you know who wrote this too? Do you know who wrote this? Tim
Is it Tim
Bontemps,
Bontemps?
who hates he just hates the team he covers, right? I don't get it. Continue.
The problem with what he said is, yes, there are questions, but for this year only.
What are but the way he phrases it makes it sound like,
how well are these young guys going to develop, which so far has been fine. Is Horford washed? Is he too old?
No. He's saying the questions are about Tatum and Brown. A whole bunch of questions surrounding both of them.
Surrounding them. I take that as the supporting cast.
I take that as there's questions surrounding the two players.
Well, if that's what he's getting at, he's wrong. I don't think that is the most solid thing on this team. If you have questions about all these other things I just mentioned, fine, because it's true. I mean, they have guys on this team that are not proven. However, so far, those guys have looked fine. The role players have looked really good so far. So I don't understand that. Second, money is one of the things they rank, and the Celtics have money if they want it. If they decide they're going to get Beal, they can do it. They can trade away Horford. They can trade away Richardson. The money matches. And, I mean, if Beal's going to leave, the Wizards will take whatever.
Yeah.
They are in position to land somebody if they want. If they think it's the right thing, they have the leverage to do that.
The way I interpret it as, he's questioning either the fit of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, which is just a dry, old, terrible take in my opinion.
I don't know why people still talk about that.
I don't either. Or he's questioning whether or not one of them will want to leave because the other one. I've never understood the Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum don't get together, one of them needs to go narrative. Right? From Jeff Goodman last year, who, I respect your opinion. You can have your own opinion. I don't understand it. Right? Like, you can think whatever you want. You can say whatever you want. It just doesn't make sense to me. What has shown you outside of last year, which was a COVID-riddled, injury-riddled mess of a season with dealing with Kemba Walker and off-court issues, where you could argue that they struggled because they both tried to go in isolation. What has shown you that they can't coexist? Right? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I agree. I just don't understand that. They have had more success than probably 90% of the league since they've been playing together.
Yep.
They have no noted issues. I don't know where that comes from. I don't understand why everyone pushes that. I don't get it. And okay, so say it does happen and it blows up and they don't want to play together. There's still two good young players. You're going to get something for whoever you decide to part with. It's not like you're going to get nothing. It's not they're both under contract. Yeah, I don't understand that. You have plenty of wiggle room with how you could restructure your team if that happened.
Yeah, there's plenty of options for him. We can roll through the rest of this list quick before we wrap up. The Raptors are 15. I don't really get why they're that high. I think the reason is they rank players, management, money, market, and draft here, and they compile that into one score, and they're 2 in management, which makes sense. Masai Ujiri is really good, so that probably propels them up the ranks a little bit. The Grizzlies at 16 feels a bit low, but then I remember how much talent there is around the league, and I kind of get it. It's going to be tough for them to break out as a deep playoff team in the next 3 years. I think they'll be one eventually, but it'll be tough. Pacers at 17 feels a bit high. I don't get that. I don't get it either.
Good. I think they're screwed. They should be 30.
Yeah. Blazers are 18. I get that's around where I put them. Yeah, that seems about right. The Bulls at 19 feels okay, maybe a bit low,
Fair.
but again, I don't really know who I'd put them over. I like the Bulls this year. I think they'll be fun to watch. I think they'll be decent. Hornets at 20 makes sense. They'll be on the rise. They do have money, as it says here. LaMelo, obviously, that's going to have you high on the list anyways. Pelicans at 21 is kind of sad, but it makes sense.
I'm surprised they didn't put them higher, not because I think they're set up to be better, but just because of, I mean, dudes love Zion. So I am surprised that they are behind really everybody after Memphis. I'm surprised they're not above them via ESPN, just the way ESPN works.
You think people should be above Memphis?
No. I don't think they should be, but I'm surprised that the way ESPN operates, they are not that high.
They should be above Indiana. They should definitely.
Indiana should be at the bottom. Like the Pacers are not in a good position at all. Like they are screwed. They have all these guys that are mediocre in the best way. I mean, they're solid players on that team, but as a collective unit, they don't have anybody above their level. Even Sabonis, like Sabonis is fine, but he's really like, if you're putting a championship team together, maybe the third guy, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
you're not going to get anywhere with that team, and they're all just getting older. So I don't get it.
Agree.
I no idea why they're that high on the list.
I agree. Spurs at 22 also seems a little whack.
Spurs are also near the bottom. I mean,
they're being propelled by money in their draft capital, which I guess makes sense. I still don't think it's great. The Thunder at 23 for the next 3 years seems a bit absurd, but again, money and draft capital, they're number one in both.
Technically, they don't have anything yet, right? They haven't picked any, but they have Giddy now, but they really haven't made any of those picks yet. So if you're doing a 3-year window, it makes sense. But
yeah. All right, Wizards at 24. Yeah. I don't.
Wizards are.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably where it should be.
Timberwolves at 25.
Yet. Timberwolves could go either way.
They could skyrocket
Edwards,
if they do
if he's really good. I mean, the Timberwolves should have been good for like some years now, though. Like they've had solid players.
Team. Yeah, 100%. 26 is the Kings. I think that's a bit disrespectful. I'd like the Kings to make the playoffs in the next few seasons, but maybe that's just me being optimistic because I like De'Aaron Fox. Rockets at 27. Yeah, that makes sense. Magic 29, Cavs 30. That's tough for the Cavs.
Who's 28?
I mean, Pistons. Pistons at 28. And yeah, Magic then Cavs. I mean, it makes sense. It's tough for the Cavs to be 15th still after all these years, but I have no argument against it. So that's just ugly. But that's all I got for today. Unless there's anything else you wanted to bring up before we
off the top of my head, no. I don't have anything. I'm really tired. So just I'm not going to give you the... Yeah, I've been up since fucking 3, so it's an issue.
Brutal. Sox tonight, though. Shout out the Red Sox. Incredible game last night.
It's been a lot of fun to watch.
You watched the whole game last night?
I didn't watch the whole thing because I had basketball in the middle of it, but I saw
the ending.
First 5 innings and then the end of the game. Yeah.
Amazing. Christian Vasquez, shout out, legend. Hopefully they can close it out tonight. This is incredible to watch. So go Sox, go Celtics moving forward. You guys can follow us at Bannertown USA on Twitter. You can follow me at Jack Simone NBA on Twitter. Thank you guys for listening to From the Rafters. And yeah, go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, make sure you follow Bannertown, follow Jack. Make sure you watch the pre-games on Guy Boston. They're a lot of fun. We have people come in the chat, ask us questions, talk, whatever. It's a lot of fun to interact with people live on the pre-games. Tim and KJ join us. It's 3 of me, Jack, and those 2. Always a good bunch. Make sure you check it out. Again, very fun to do. Yeah, you can follow me at Sam LaFrance NBA. That's our show for today, guys.